Perfect marriage deception. Hers cruel betrayal uncovered. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My wife looked me in the eye and asked if I trusted her, while another man's lease sat in her purse. That was the moment my marriage stopped feeling complicated and started feeling staged. My name's Daniel Harper. I'm 35. I work as a physical therapist in a rehab clinic outside Columbus, and I'm the kind of person who believes in routines because routines keep people standing. I help stroke patients relearn stairs, football dads walk without limping, grandmothers trust their hips again. It's not glamorous work, but it matters. I built my life around being steady. I thought Claire loved that about me. Everybody else loved her first. Claire had that impossible kind of composure that made waiters remember her order and neighbors assume she was kinder than she actually was. She remembered birthdays, sent handwritten thank you notes, posted soft, filtered pictures of our kitchen with captions like, "Home is a person." If you met us at a fundraiser, you'd think we were the couple people point at when they're trying to convince themselves marriage still works. And for a long time, I thought so too. We'd been married 6 years. No kids yet, by choice. A renovated 2-story house in Dublin, one joint savings account, one shared calendar, Sunday coffee on the porch even in winter. She kissed me before early shifts. I picked up her dry cleaning on Thursdays. Nothing in my life felt fragile. Then, 3 hours before our anniversary dinner, I found a folded rental agreement in her handbag while looking for the car keys she swore were inside. Different address. Downtown. 12-month lease. Tenant name, Claire Elise Harper. Authorized occupant, Gavin Mercer. At first my brain rejected it. I actually laughed. Quietly. Alone in our mudroom. Because what else do you do when your wife has a second residence with a man you've only heard described as a donor contact from Nina's charity board? I stood there in my work scrubs, holding that paper, hearing the dryer hum in the next room, and realized if I was right, I wasn't just losing a marriage. I was about to lose my home, my savings, half my friends, and maybe my own name. Then Claire's car pulled into the driveway before I could hide the lease. If you had asked me a month earlier whether Claire and I were happy, I would have answered too fast. That's the embarrassing part. Not that she lied. That I mistook a performance for peace. Claire was brilliant at building rituals that looked intimate from the outside. Friday date nights at the same wine bar. Our ridiculous mug collection. The annual apple orchard photos she insisted on taking herself because tripods make couples look dead inside. She called me Harper when she was playful and Danny only when we were alone. She remembered how I took my coffee, how I hated crowded elevators, which patients kept me up at night. She would touch my wrist in public while talking to other people, like she wanted the room to know we were connected. People love that. Nina used to joke, "You two make the rest of us look deeply under-rehearsed." Claire would smile and say, "We just protect what we have." At the time, that sounded romantic. Later, it sounded like strategy. There were dozens of tiny things I filed under compatibility. She handled reservations because I forgot dates. She managed our social calendar because she was better with names. She kept digital copies of our tax records, insurance forms, and mortgage statements because she was the organized one. I told myself that was maturity. I never asked why every practical system in our marriage slowly ended up behind one of her passwords. When she posted about us online, it was always polished but modest. A photo of our hands across a restaurant table, my jacket hanging beside hers. The caption from our 5th anniversary was, "Still choosing each other." My mother texted me, "Hold on to that woman." I thought I already had. Even her compliments kept me in place. "You're safe," she told me once, with her head on my chest. That's rare. I smiled like that was the highest praise a husband could get. I didn't notice she hadn't said loving, or funny, or exciting. Just safe. Dependable. Predictable. The kind of man you build a life on while quietly planning your escape from it. And there was one detail from our perfect marriage I couldn't stop replaying once everything cracked. Claire had stopped wearing her ring at home months before I noticed. The first red flag wasn't romantic. It was financial, which somehow made it easier to ignore. 3 weeks before I found the lease, I was reviewing our joint credit card because a patient's insurance reimbursement had hit late, and I wanted to make sure our mortgage autopay cleared on the 15th. Claire usually handled those things, but she was in the shower, and I had 10 spare minutes and a bad habit of checking numbers twice. There was a charge for $842. 16 at a boutique hotel downtown called the Ashby House. I remember staring at it and thinking there had to be a simple explanation. Maybe a charity event. Maybe she booked a room for Nina's out-of-town guests. Maybe it was fraud. I even felt defensive on her behalf before she said a word. When I asked, she didn't flinch. "Oh, that," she said, toweling her hair. "Bridal suite deposit for the Peterson fundraiser. Nina asked me to front it because the event card kept getting flagged. $800. It's downtown, Daniel. Not a Motel 6. She laughed, kissed my cheek, and asked if I could grab Basil on the way home. That should have settled it. Instead, something about how quickly she answered sat wrong with me. Too ready. Too polished. A few days later, I noticed she'd changed the password on our shared calendar. When I mentioned it, she looked genuinely irritated. "I updated everything after that phishing scare. I sent you the new login." "You didn't. Then check your spam before accusing me of things." Accusing. That word landed harder than it should have. Then came the canceled plans. Claire bailed on dinner with my brother because she had a migraine, but Nina posted a story from a gallery opening that night, and in the blurred background, I could have sworn I saw Claire's green coat. I zoomed in until the image pixelated, then hated myself for doing it. At work, I started missing small things. A coworker said, "You good, man?" And I told him I was tired. I wanted tired to be the answer. Then a county envelope arrived, and Claire snatched it before I could read. The first time Claire made me look crazy in public, she did it with a smile. It happened at Nina's fundraiser, the same one she claimed explained the hotel charge. The event was at a converted warehouse downtown with string lights, silent auction tables, and tiny food arranged like sculpture. Claire wore a navy dress I'd bought her and moved through that room like she owned better lighting than the rest of us. I was carrying 2 glasses of wine when I saw her across the room, leaning in close to a man I didn't know. Expensive suit, silver watch, hand on the back of her chair like familiarity was his default setting. He said something that made her laugh, the real kind I'd been getting less of at home. When she came back, I kept my voice low. "Who was that?" She blinked once. "Who?" "The guy at your table." "Oh, Gavin Mercer, real estate donor. Nina introduced us months ago. He seemed pretty comfortable." She gave me a look that was almost maternal. "Daniel, are you seriously doing this here?" "Doing what?" "This insecure little husband act." The words didn't hit as hard as the timing. Nina had just walked up. So had 2 board members. Everyone heard enough. Claire turned to them with an embarrassed laugh. "Sorry. He's been stressed at work and suddenly every man in a blazer is a threat." One of the board members chuckled. Nina didn't. I stood there holding both glasses like an idiot while Claire touched my arm and said, "Why don't you get some air, babe?" I went outside because staying would have made it worse. 10 minutes later, while I was by the valet stand trying not to look humiliated, a man in a wrinkled suit crossed the courtyard and asked for Claire Harper. He was holding a thick envelope. I said, "Can I help you?" "You her husband?" "Yes." He glanced toward the entrance. "Then you should probably know she's being served Monday if counsel doesn't respond." My stomach dropped. "Served with what?" He checked the page clipped to the front. "Petition related to undisclosed property transfer and asset concealment." Before I could say another word, Nina stepped outside, saw the envelope, and went pale. Then Claire appeared behind her and grabbed the papers like she'd been waiting for them. That should have been the moment I confronted her. Instead, it became the beginning of me apologizing for being injured by my own marriage. In the car after the fundraiser, Claire stared out the passenger window and said, "You humiliated me tonight." I almost missed the exit because I thought I'd heard her wrong. "I humiliated you. You cornered me over a donor in the middle of an event and then let some random process server shove papers in your face like we're trashy people." He said asset concealment. She folded her arms. "Exactly. Legal language you don't understand." "Then explain it." She turned slowly. "Nina's board asked me to temporarily move a property option through a private LLC because the seller was panicking. My name appeared on paperwork for 48 hours. It's already being fixed, and now I get to spend the weekend cleaning up a mess because you can't regulate your emotions." That line worked because it sounded plausible and insulting at the same time. By the time we pulled into the driveway, I was angry, but I was also ashamed for not knowing enough to call it nonsense. Claire had a gift for using competence as a weapon. She never had to prove I was irrational. She just had to sound more informed than I was. The next morning, Nina texted me, "You okay?" I stared at it for 10 minutes before answering, "Fine." Weird night. She replied, Claire said you've been under a lot of pressure. Just take care of yourself. That stung more than if she'd accused me outright. Claire had already moved first. She was framing me as unstable before I understood the board. A week later, I asked if we could review finances together, just to clear the air. She set down her fork and smiled without warmth. Daniel, I need you to decide whether you're my husband or my auditor. I'm asking because I'm confused. No, she said. You're asking because you want control when you feel small. That was the first night I slept on the couch. Not because she told me to. Because I didn't trust myself not to ask for reassurance she didn't mean. The only person who didn't sound fully convinced by Claire's version was Nina. And when Nina finally called, her first sentence changed everything. Nina didn't even pretend to make small talk. Daniel, she said, voice low, has Claire ever mentioned a storage unit? I was standing in the clinic supply room holding a box of resistance bands. What? She had a package delivered to my office by accident last month. Key tag, East Side Storage. I handed it back and she got weird. My grip tightened. Weird how? Not guilty. Defensive. Like I'd opened something private. She said it was for silent auction inventory. Nina hesitated. I almost didn't call. She's my friend too. I thanked her and hung up with my pulse banging in my throat. That night Claire was at committee drinks. I told myself I was only looking for tax paperwork when I opened the hall closet where we kept old electronics and travel bags. The second phone was inside a suede boot box. Not hidden well. Hidden confidently. It was a black iPhone with no case and no service banner, just Wi-Fi. The passcode failed twice before I tried Claire's old college pin. It opened. My stomach turned before I even scrolled. A Gmail account under the name Elise Warren. A notes app with unit numbers and payment dates. Ride receipts to downtown, Grandview, and an address on Wilcox Avenue. Photos of furniture in an apartment I had never seen. Cream sofa, brass lamp, wine glasses still boxed. There was also a screenshot of a draft email to a divorce attorney with bullet points under my name. Emotionally rigid. Controlling about money. Prone to anger in public. Document incidents carefully. I sat on the carpet and read those lines until the words stopped feeling like English. Not only was she lying, she was writing me into a role. Then I found the hotel loyalty login saved in the browser and a PDF confirmation for a storage unit rented under Gavin Mercer's company, with Claire listed as an authorized user. Unit 418. Paid through December. That was the moment I stopped asking whether I was paranoid. I copied everything to my laptop, put the phone back exactly where I found it, and waited for her headlights. But when Claire came home, she was carrying something that made my blood run colder. Claire came through the front door balancing a flat white bakery box and a garment bag, smiling like she'd spent the evening buying us a future. For Saturday, she said, lifting the bag. I had your jacket pressed. There are moments when betrayal becomes surreal not because it's dramatic, but because it's efficient. She had spent hours building a case against me and still remembered my favorite almond cake. I said, "What's Saturday?" She paused only a fraction. Our anniversary dinner? Daniel, seriously? Right. The dinner she had planned down to the candle color, while renting an apartment with another man and drafting notes for my destruction. Long day, I muttered. She kissed my cheek and went upstairs. After that, I stopped reacting and started recording reality. I downloaded our bank statements for the previous 6 months. I requested detailed transaction histories from the joint Visa and our savings transfers. I checked Easy Pass logs, utility payments, and the shared car service app. Once I knew where to look, Claire's lies started leaving footprints everywhere. September 11th, rideshare to the Ashby house at 9:14 p.m. Return trip missing. September 19th, transfer of $4,000 from our joint savings into a personal account ending in 8821. October 2nd, storage unit payment, $186.50, billed through Mercer Development Group. October 6th, 2 guest passes issued at an apartment garage on Wilcox Avenue. I took screenshots of everything and saved them in a folder labeled Clinic Tax Docs. Then I drove downtown on my lunch break and sat outside the Wilcox address. It was a renovated brick building with frosted glass doors and a smug little courtyard. At 12:41 p.m., Gavin Mercer walked out carrying dry cleaning. At 12:48, Claire stepped into the lobby from the elevator, sunglasses on, moving with the ease of someone leaving a place she belonged. I almost got out of the car. I almost shouted her name across the street like proof would hurt less if she saw me witnessing it. Instead, I took photos through the windshield and called in sick for the rest of the day. By then, the pattern was obvious. What I still didn't understand was why Claire was stealing from me so methodically. I got the answer from paperwork, not passion. People think the worst betrayal is catching your spouse kissing someone else. It isn't. Kissing is messy, impulsive, human. What Claire was doing was administrative. It had tabs. I took a personal day and met with Elena Ruiz, an attorney a co-worker's cousin recommended after I called it a weird property issue. Elena was in her 50s, wore no-nonsense black frames, and listened without interrupting while I slid printouts across her desk. She sorted the papers into neat stacks. "Have you confronted her?" she asked. "No." "Good. Don't." I pointed to the transfer history. "Can she move money out of our joint account without me knowing?" "She already has." Elena pulled up county records while I sat there barely breathing. 2 months earlier, an LLC called Wren Urban Holdings had filed a purchase option on a one-bedroom condo downtown. The beneficial owner wasn't public, but the emergency contact on one filing amendment was Claire's burner email. Another attachment referenced a private loan guarantee through Mercer Development Group. I stared at the screen. "So the apartment is hers?" "Not exactly," Elena said. "It's controlled through layers. That usually means someone wants distance from ownership." Then she opened the thing that made my ears ring. Claire had also scheduled a consultation with a family law firm. Elena couldn't access the full intake, but one metadata line attached to a draft request included temporary exclusive possession of the marital home based on emotional volatility and financial coercion. Financial coercion. I laughed when I read it, and Elena didn't. "This is bigger than an affair," she said. "She appears to be moving shared funds, creating a separate residence, and documenting a narrative to position you as unstable before filing." My mouth went dry. Why? Because if she files first with a cleaner story, she controls the first impression. So that was the twist. Claire wasn't only sleeping with Gavin. She was building an exit route with my money, a second home, and a paper trail designed to make me lose the house without a fight. Then Elena slid over one final page and said, "This signature isn't yours." The forged signature was on a home equity line inquiry dated September 28th. Not the final loan package. Not yet, but close enough to show how far Claire was willing to go. My name was typed correctly. My signature was not. It had the right shape from a distance, but the loops were too careful, like someone had copied confidence instead of handwriting. The application listed our house as collateral. I sat in Elena's office staring at my fake name until I felt detached from my own body. "She can't be this reckless," I said. Elena folded her hands. "People become very organized when they believe they'll never be challenged." That afternoon, we built the first real plan. Not revenge. Documentation. Elena had me open a new checking account in my name only and redirect my paycheck there. She told me to leave enough in the joint account to avoid looking retaliatory, but not enough to fund someone else's escape. She drafted requests for copies of the inquiry records and condo correspondence. "If you confront her emotionally, she'll destroy evidence," Elena said. "If you confront her strategically, you may protect yourself." So I just keep pretending? For a little longer. Over the next 4 days, I became someone I did not recognize. I backed up screenshots to an encrypted drive. I photographed the storage unit tag after Nina emailed me a picture from when the package reached her office. I requested camera logs from our home security app and learned Claire had disabled exterior notifications on 3 nights, always between 8 p.m. and midnight. Then Nina called again. "I need to tell you something," she said. "Gavin told someone at the board dinner that Claire was almost free." I thought it meant emotionally. Now I don't. I closed my office door. "Did he say anything else?" "He said the house would be cleaner if you melted down first." That sentence should have made me furious. Instead, it made me cold. I could blow everything up that night and maybe feel better for 10 minutes. Or I could wait, build the file, and make sure Claire never got to turn my pain into her evidence. Then she texted me our anniversary table with, "Can't wait for Saturday." Saturday night nearly broke me. Claire wore ivory silk, and the expression she saved for waitstaff, photographers, and people she planned to outmaneuver. The dining room at Belford's was set with low candles and roses. Nina was there because Claire said it felt sad to celebrate after recent tension without a friend who loved us both. Gavin was not invited. which told me Claire still believed she controlled the map. Dinner felt like a test I hadn't studied for. She reached for my hand under the table. You seem quiet. Long week. She squeezed my fingers. I miss you. That was the cruelty of her. Not just lying. Using tenderness like chloroform. Nina watched us over the rim of her glass, barely drinking. Twice I caught her opening her mouth like she wanted to interrupt something invisible. Halfway through the entree, Claire leaned in and said softly, I made an appointment for us. I forced my face to stay neutral. For what? Counseling. Monday. We need help communicating before your stress turns into something worse. There it was. Not concern. Positioning. Nina set down her fork. Claire kept going. I've been covering for you with people, Daniel. At some point, protecting your privacy starts looking like enabling. My heartbeat went so hard I could hear it in my ears. She was doing it live, planting language in front of a witness, building the version of me she wanted remembered. I almost said everything. About the phone, the lease, Gavin, the forged loan inquiry. I could feel the words rising like vomit. Then my phone buzzed under the table. It was Elena. Do not react if she provokes. Bank confirmed meeting Tuesday, 11 a.m. I looked up and Claire smiled, serene, because she thought my silence meant weakness. Say something, she said. So I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I smiled back. You're right, I told her. We should talk to someone. For the first time all evening, she blinked. Later, in the parking lot, Nina grabbed my arm before I got into my car. She's baiting you, she whispered. Whatever you know, don't give it to her tonight. I nodded, but my hands were shaking so badly I dropped my keys twice. Then Claire slid into the passenger seat and asked the wrong question. When Claire got into the car, she closed the door and asked, Did you go through my things? I kept my eyes on the windshield. What? My purse. Earlier this week. It felt moved. Every instinct in me screamed to deny too quickly. Elena had warned me that guilty people study the first reaction, not the answer. I shrugged. I was looking for the keys once. Claire turned toward me. And I found the keys. Silence. Then she laughed softly. You know what your problem is? I started the engine. Probably several things. You mistake being decent for being perceptive. That sentence stayed with me all night. By Monday morning, Elena had arranged what she called a documentation meeting at Midstate Community Bank. Officially, it was a review of irregular account activity and a signature discrepancy involving marital collateral. Unofficially, it was a controlled room where Claire would either tell the truth or lie in front of people who could stop the damage. Elena wanted witnesses. I wanted one person Claire couldn't dismiss as biased. So I called Nina. She went silent. Daniel, she said finally, if I come, I need you to know something first. My throat tightened. What? Claire told me 2 weeks ago she was afraid you'd react badly when you found out she was leaving. Leaving. Not if. When. She said you'd been checking on her, asking weird questions, making her feel watched. I shut my office door. Did you believe her? I wanted to, Nina said. But then I remembered the fundraiser, the papers, the storage key, the way she always says things early enough that everyone else repeats them for her. Elena sent the plan. Claire would be asked to attend a routine signature verification and account clarification meeting Tuesday at 11. I would arrive separately. The bank officer would present the inquiry, transfer activity, and condo paperwork once Claire confirmed her identity on record. Do not accuse her in advance, Elena told me. Let the documents speak first. Tuesday morning, Claire texted me from upstairs before work. Bank thing at 11. Don't make it awkward. She still thought she was the smartest person in the room. She had no idea who else would be sitting at that table. The reveal took 43 minutes. I had imagined something cinematic. Claire collapsing, shouting, confessing in a burst. Real exposure is uglier than that. It happens in layers. Someone reads a date. Someone slides over a printout. Someone asks. The lie runs out of room inch by inch. Claire entered the conference room at Midstate in slacks and a camel coat, saw me, then saw Nina, and her smile faltered. Oh, she said. What is this? The bank officer stood. Mrs. Harper, thanks for coming. We need to clarify irregularities connected to a line inquiry and several associated transfers. Claire looked at me. Daniel. Elena answered instead. I'm Elena Ruiz, representing Mr. Harper's interests regarding potential unauthorized financial activity. Claire sat down. This is absurd. The bank officer began with the home equity inquiry dated September 28th. Claire said she knew nothing about it. Elena slid over the signature comparison. Then he presented the linked email used in follow-up communication. Elise Warren, Claire's burner account. Her jaw tightened. That isn't mine. Elena placed the recovery information beside it. Backup number ending in 1184, Claire's old cell. Recovery email linked to a device registered on our home Wi-Fi. Transfers for $1,000. Then $2,300. Then $1,100. Movement from our joint savings into the account ending 8821. The bank officer asked Claire to explain the recipient account. Consulting expenses. Elena slid over the ownership verification. Account holder, Ren Urban Holdings. Authorized manager, Claire E. Harper. Then the condo documents. Guest access logs. The Wilcox lease amendment. Gavin Mercer listed as occupant. Payment trail routed through his company, then reimbursed in part by funds Claire moved from our savings. That was when Claire stopped performing innocence and switched to contempt. She looked directly at me and said, "You really did all this instead of speaking to me like a man." Elena didn't look at her. "Would you explain the draft filing that characterizes Mr. Harper as emotionally volatile while you were preparing a separate residence and diverting marital assets?" Claire's mask finally slipped, and what she said next was worse than any confession I had imagined. Claire leaned back in her chair, looked at Nina instead of me, and said, "He was never going to leave that house unless I forced movement. There are sentences your body remembers before your mind does. Mine still lives in my ribs." Nina stared at Claire like she'd just discovered a trapdoor under a familiar room. Claire kept going because people like her, once they lose control of the script, mistake cruelty for power. "You want the truth?" she said. "Daniel is a good man. He's also passive, suspicious, impossible to build with unless everything is his pace, his comfort, his little life." I was done waiting. Elena's voice stayed even. "So you forged access to marital credit and diverted joint funds?" Claire gave the smallest shrug. "I protected my transition. Not our marriage. Not an affair. A transition. Like I was old flooring she planned to replace." Nina whispered, "Claire, what is wrong with you?" Claire finally looked at her. "Please don't perform shock. You knew I was unhappy." "I knew you were dishonest," Nina said. "I didn't know you were building a fraud case against your husband." The meeting ended after that. The bank officer said the inquiry would be flagged, the transfers documented, and further activity reviewed. Elena requested preservation notices. Claire asked if we were finished here, in the same tone she used with bad customer service. In the hallway, she stopped beside me and lowered her voice. "You've made this much uglier than it needed to be." I turned to her. "Needed for who?" Her face hardened. "For you. Gavin doesn't panic. Lawyers don't scare me. But public humiliation? That I'll remember." That was when I understood Claire had mistaken my restraint for weakness. The fallout started fast. Elena filed emergency notices regarding the disputed transfers and inquiry. I changed the locks after Claire collected a supervised set of personal items with her attorney present. Gavin's name disappeared from Nina's board donor page within 48 hours. At work, I functioned badly for a week. I missed chart notes and cried once in my car because my body needed somewhere stupid to put the grief. Vindication is real. So is collapse. Then Elena called on Friday evening and told me Claire had made one more move. Claire's last move wasn't romantic. It was tactical, and by then I should have expected that. She requested temporary access to the house to retrieve personal business materials not included in the first pickup. Elena's office pushed for an itemized list. What came back was laughable: framed photos, winter coats, archived client notes, and miscellaneous sentimental property. Buried in the middle were 2 external hard drives and a file box labeled Tax Records 2021 to 2024. Those drives did not belong to sentiment. They belonged to leverage. Elena said, "No unsupervised access. If she wants documents, we produce copies." For the first time in weeks, I felt something stronger than panic. I felt clear. I changed every password she had ever touched. Bank logins, utility accounts, cloud backups. I moved important documents into a safe deposit box Elena's firm recommended. I stopped answering Claire directly and let every communication run through counsel. At night, the silence in the house was brutal. There was no soundtrack to my grief anymore. just the refrigerator humming and the shape of absence. I started therapy on Thursdays at 7 p.m. I forced myself to eat actual meals. I ran short loops around the neighborhood, even when my chest felt hollow. Little by little, my body stopped bracing for impact every time my phone lit up. Nina checked in without asking for emotional labor I couldn't give. One evening she brought soup, stood in my kitchen, and said, "I'm sorry I helped her credibility by trusting her polish." I told her, so did I. That was the truest thing I said all month. The legal part moved slower. The forged inquiry never became a funded loan, which mattered. The diverted money was traceable, which mattered more. Elena negotiated terms that kept the house from becoming immediate collateral in Claire's exit plan. I agreed to written boundaries. No direct pickup requests, no private meetings, no just talk to me ambushes in parking lots. I did not become vindictive. I became procedural. And somewhere in that dull, unglamorous discipline, my life started feeling like mine again. Then an unknown number sent a photo that stopped my heart cold. The photo was of the Wilcox apartment, half empty. The cream sofa was gone. The brass lamp was tipped sideways. One boxed wine glass had shattered on the floor. The message underneath read, "She lied to me too. I'm out. Gavin." I stared at it for a long time and felt nothing dramatic. No triumph. No satisfaction. Just a tired kind of confirmation. Claire had not built a second life because she loved more deeply somewhere else. She had built it because she believed she deserved a cleaner, brighter version of herself, and other people were just surfaces she could step on to get there. I forwarded the message to Elena and blocked the number. That ended up being the rhythm of my recovery. Not speeches. Not revenge. Quiet acts of self-respect repeated until they formed a life. Therapy every Thursday. Coffee on the porch alone. New locks, new account structures, new habits. I sold the dining table where she had staged so many beautiful lies and replaced it with a smaller one. I kept the house because Elena helped me document everything early. Claire eventually agreed to a settlement she would never have accepted if the paper trail had stayed in her control. Nina and I stayed in touch. Some friendships survived scandal only after they stopped pretending nothing happened. She admitted she had confused Claire's polish with character. I admitted I had confused consistency with intimacy. Those are not the same thing. One keeps a schedule. The other tells the truth when the truth costs something. People online love a clean moral, but betrayal doesn't leave one. It leaves a mess and then asks who you become while cleaning it up. What I learned is simple and expensive. If your partner is always managing the narrative, collecting sympathy before conflict, locking down information, and making you apologize for your own confusion, that is not sophistication. That is control. Believe patterns, not presentation. Believe the body that tenses before the mind can explain why. Last week, I planted herbs in the kitchen window because Claire said they made the room look cluttered. Basil, rosemary, mint. Morning light hit the glass, and for the first time in a year, the house felt quiet instead of empty.